The War for Mansoul by John Bunyan, as told by Ethel Barrett. Copyright 1998, Christian Light Publications Incorporated, Harrisonburg, Virginia. War. Diabolus was right. The emergency was not far off. Captain Boanger's trumpeter returned and reported that Mansoul would not answer the summons. The captain was grieved, but bade the trumpeter go to his tent. A short time later, the summons to a hearing was repeated. Again Mansoul would not answer. Then the captains and other field officers called a council of war to consider what might be done. They decided to try one more summons. This third summons was louder than others. It seemed to demand an answer. Sure enough, Wilby-Will's head appeared over the wall. "Who are you?" he cried. "Why are you making such a hideous noise, and what do you want?" "I come in the name of Captain Boanerges and your former king, the great King Shaddai, whom you have rebelled against. My master the captain has a special message for this town. Will you hear it peaceably?" "I'll deliver your message to my master, Diabolus, and see what he has to say." "The message is not for Diabolus. It's for Mansoul, in the name of the king." "I'll deliver your message to the town, then." "Captain Boanerges himself will be here to receive your answer," the trumpeter cried. And the interview was ended for the time being. Each went back to his master and reported what had happened. When the time was up and the trumpeter sounded again, not only Captain Boanerges, but the other captains and the entire 4 divisions were outside Eargate. Everybody who was anybody was on the city wall. Captain Boanerges stepped forward. "I desire to speak with your mayor," he shouted. There was a slight hesitation, then a brief hubbub, then Unbelief stepped forward and boldly glared at the captain. Boanerges stared in surprise. "This is not the mayor," he shouted. "Where is Lord Mayor Understanding? I want to deliver my message to him." Diabolus could keep quiet no longer. "My dear captain," his voice was dripping with mock patience, "you have summoned Mansoul to surrender to your king no less than 4 times. I don't know who gave you this authority, and I don't intend to dispute that now. I merely ask, what are you up to, or don't you know?" Captain Boanerges paid him the crowning insult. He ignored him as if he was not there, and addressed himself to the townsmen. He stood by the shield with the thunderbolts on it, while his black banner rippled in the breeze behind him, and gave them the message again, to submit to King Shaddai. Then Captain Conviction stepped forward. "Hear, O Mansoul," he cried. "It is your wisdom, it will be your happiness to surrender to Shaddai. You cannot claim you have not sinned. Your very rebellion against him is your sin. All of your doings will testify against you." "Stop badgering them," cried Unbelief. Conviction ignored him. "Shaddai is reasoning with you through us," he cried to Mansoul. "Does he have the need of you that you have of him? No, no, he is merciful and would not have you die, but turn to him and live. Do not overstay the time of his mercy. Listen now." Then Captain Judgment stood forth. "Do not underestimate the power of King Shaddai," he said. "He is able to lay you at his feet. Oh, Mansoul, he is holding out his golden scepter to you. Will you provoke him to shut his gates against you instead? Don't refuse his mercy now. He is preparing his throne for judgment later." Diabolus trembled. Some saw, most did not notice. Captain Execution stepped forward. "Every tree that does not bear good fruit," he said, "is hewn down and cast into the fire. The axe is first laid to your root by way of threatening. Ultimately, it must be laid at your root by way of execution. Between these 2 is required your repentance. Shaddai's patience does not last forever. Your rebellion has brought this army to your walls. What makes you think Shaddai cannot carry out his words?" There was silence. Then some murmuring started in the crowd and grew louder until a few braver spokesmen called out, "Time! The Mansoulians want a little time to consider their answer. The request was timid. It was obvious that the Mansoulians had no leaders among themselves. "We'll give you time on one condition," shouted Mangerous, "that you throw Mr. Illpause over the wall to us. If you hesitate a moment with him in town, you are lost. Now, over the top." This threat galvanized Diabolus into action. Lose Illpause? Never! He forgot his momentary fright. He leaped forward. "Give these villains an answer," he'd ordered his officers. "Speak out, you, Unbelief, you first." Unbelief was ready. "You have camped against us. Where you came from, we don't know, and your promises of mercy and threats of judgment from this king you say sent you here make a pretty tall story. We do not believe you. We're not afraid of you. We defy you in your summons. Now get you gone, bag and baggage, before our weapons start flying from those city walls against you." Diabolus turned to Will-be-Will. Come, he hissed. "Will-be-Will, speak out, speak!" Will-be-Will swallowed hard. He was desperate. Yes," he said. That is right, all that he says. We have heard your demands and your threats. We're not afraid of you. We defy you and your summons. Besides, we prefer to remain as we are, and we give you 3 days to get out." For the first time, the horrible suspicion that he might be a yes-man crossed his mind, but there wasn't time to dwell on it. Mr. Forgetgood, the new town recorder, was speaking without prompting. "Gentlemen," he said, "we have answered your rough and angry demands with mild and gentle words, and we've given you leave to depart quietly as you came. Now take our kindness and be gone. We might have come out with force against you and given you a bit of trouble, but as we love quiet and ease ourselves, we do not wish to hurt or molest others." For some strange reason, the townspeople took that as a signal to shout for joy, as though a great victory had already been won. They began to ring bells and make merry, and even danced upon the walls. Diabolus and his warlords exchanged smug glances. "They did a good job of it," said Beelzebub. "Couldn't have done better myself," said Diabolus. "You had very little to say," said Legion. "I believe in democracy," said Diabolus, "upon occasion. Sometimes it's better to let them speak for themselves." They started back to the castle. Lord Mayor Unbelief went back to his place, and Mr. Forgetgood the recorder to his. But Lord Will-be-Will stayed behind to do his homework. He took special care that the gates were secured with double guards, double bolts, and double locks and bars, especially Ear Gate. He shouted orders and huffed and puffed and paced about, and still not satisfied, he made old Mr. Prejudice, one of the angry old men of the town, captain of Ear Gate, with 60 deaf men under him. This last thing done, he went back to the top of the tower over Ear Gate to check 2 of Mansoul's great guns. One was called High Mind, and the other Heady. These had been cast in the castle by Diabolus's founder, whose name was Mr. Puff-Up, and Mansoul set great store by them. Then Will-be-Will made his way wearily back to his home. One could not be too zealous. Behind him, the merriment on the walls grew noisier. There was, strangely, something ominous about it. Will-be-Will shivered in the twilight. Then, through the shouts and ringing of the bells and noisemakers, he heard it, the battle cry of Shaddai's captains. Lord Lustings heard it, and old Unbelief heard it, and Mr. Forgetgood too heard it from their houses, and Diabolus and his warlords heard it from the castle. The cry rang loud and clear through the twilight air and penetrated every barracks, every castle, every home. "Ye must be born again." Will turned up the collar of his cloak and hurried toward his home, repelled by the words, and a little frightened, though he would not admit it. The war was on.